Hi everyone, welcome to episode 66 of the Immigration Lawyers Podcast. This is an interview episode, an interview with immigration attorney Matthew Kolken. Matthew's a great experienced immigration lawyer, especially in the field of removal defense. I talked about, just the field of immigration reform. I learned a lot from him. He's someone who's had his hand in the process of immigration reform with Congress and representatives, and he shared some interesting ideas as I'm trying to wrap my head around the philosophy of immigration and practical ways of doing reform. I'm still trying to figure it all out. And I got some good ideas from what he talked about. Before starting the episode, I just want to remind everybody I'm going to be in Las Vegas for the Southern California AILA's spring event on the 20th. So if you're there, definitely come by. I'm going to be at the Small and Solo Firm seminar speaking over there. Also, as a reminder, the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox form filler system I'm creating for marriage adjustment cases. If you're interested, just go to www.immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com, lawyers is plural, to sign up, and I'll send you updates. I'm probably going to release that program for free, still trying to think about how it's going to happen. And finally, if you like this program, please like, subscribe, and put comments on YouTube and on iTunes. 5 stars would be great. Without further ado, let's get it started. Welcome to the Immigration Lawyers Podcast. I am the host, Attorney John Khosravi, and I practice U.S. immigration law exclusively. For more information about the program, please visit www.immigrationlawyerspodcast.com. Please note that this recording is informational only and does not constitute legal advice. Please consult with a licensed attorney for specific legal guidance that suits your case. Also, this recording is copyrighted and written permission is required for rebroadcasting. For more information about me, please visit www.jqqlaw.com. Hi everyone. So we have a very special guest today, immigration attorney Matthew Kolken. Matthew's immigration attorney in New York. Is that correct, New York?
Yeah, I'm in Buffalo, but
okay.
New York. But Buffalo is in New York.
I'm from LA, so New York is just Manhattan probably, but Buffalo, greater state of New York. And he's been practicing. I see you're an AILA member since 1997, so you've been at this for a long time.
Well, it goes by quickly.
Yeah, it does. Well, thanks so much for talking with us. You know, I found you on Twitter and I've been following you and a lot of good information. I've seen the good work you do, especially fighting, the system that we're really all fighting against. So I want to just talk with you about the stuff you're doing, your practice on a daily basis, and also just the situation going on, not just with the current administration, but just generally with immigration, how strict they've become. The situation in immigration court, and anything else you want to talk about. So let's just get it started. Can you tell me a little about yourself, where you grew up, and how you got into immigration law?
Sure. I grew up in Buffalo, New York. I went to college out in California, then law school in Michigan, and came back to Buffalo after law school. Had an amazing opportunity to be able to work for my father, who I've been practicing with now for, 21 years, I guess it is. And he was practicing immigration law. So that's how I got into it, and 21 years later, here I am.
Wonderful. When did your dad start practicing immigration law?
He dabbled with it for a number of years, but he had a general practice with a focus on matrimonial, and then I think he just got to the point where he couldn't do another divorce, and and switched full time, probably late 80s, early 90s, to a full service immigration law firm.
I've seen a lot of people from that generation that became full-time immigration lawyers start around the 70s and 80s. And was it even possible to be a full-time immigration attorney before that? Was there that much business, or because I've seen a lot of people who were mixed, and then in the late 70s, then they started practicing only immigration. It seemed like the business got bigger during that time.
Well, before '96, there was actually, because in Buffalo we're right on the border, and it's a very busy border. There was a huge inadmissibility type immigration court practice, where individuals were being prevented from being able to come into the United States. There was no expedited removal. So if you lived on a border town and there was regular crossings, there was a lot of business for practitioners who would go into immigration court to overcome determinations of inadmissibility.
Awesome. So you started, what year did you graduate?
I graduated from law school in '96.
And how soon did you jump into practicing immigration law?
I guess I took 6 weeks off and started work.
Awesome. So you jumped into it. And now is your practice primarily removal defense, or do you do the whole gamut?
I do the whole gamut, but my bread and butter is removal defense and waivers.
Interesting.
Asylum claims as well. We do. I mean, we do family. We do the business stuff. Right now, we're struggling with an H-2A, which is, I can't even believe the flaming hoops. We don't do a lot of H-2As.
Yeah, that's one of the nuanced ones. Yeah, I myself, I don't even touch H visas at all anymore because like it requires so much attention, especially like H-1Bs and those RFEs that are coming and all that, and having to set aside time for H-1B season. And I'm a solo, so I'm like, I just want to do stuff where I have my time to do stuff and there's no rush. Because clients will call you in late March to say, I want to do H-1B. I'm like, well, it's too late. It's always like the last second they want to get into it. So
Well, that's the nature of the beast, right?
yeah, exactly. So your practice, you're with your father. I think you said you have before we talked, you had an associate. So it's it's a small practice. It's almost solo kind of practice. How do you handle the volume coming in to control it and be able to just manage it all?
Well, I part of it is that we're at the top of the spectrum for fees.
Mm-hmm.
So that unfortunately rules out a lot of individuals from being able to hire us to go into immigration court. But that said, I tried to dedicate 10% of my practice to pro bono representation to either individuals that are indigent or obviously since 2014 the large flow of unaccompanied minors from Central America. I work with the Erie County Bar Association's Volunteer Lawyers Project, and I take all of their unaccompanied minor cases on a pro bono basis.
Oh, wow, that's wonderful. In accompanied minor case, how successful have you been in those kind of cases in court?
I haven't had a single one deported yet. They've all had 360s approved and are either waiting for adjustment of status or are already holding a green card.
Awesome. Actually, I've been working with Catholic Charities in Los Angeles, and it's been taking a while to see what happens, but to recording training sessions for unaccompanied minors and how to do SIGs or something. I don't do those cases, but record them, do training centers sessions so more people can get involved and do that kind of stuff pro bono. And that's really a group that's really getting the short end of it and not getting any representation. How do you keep up on the immigration law and knowledge just because it changes constantly? How much of your time is spent just studying like the new cases and stuff, and how you get that information?
Well, every single case that I take, I treat it as if it's the first case that I've ever handled. Even though I might have dealt with a specific issue of law 1,000 times in the past, you have to pull the regulations, you pull the act, and you see what the most recent, I mean, with the internet these days and with all of our research online, it makes it much easier to be able to assess what the changes are with regards to precedential decisions, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So you just have to be really, really diligent because you just never know what's coming down the pike.
That's a good point. I do the same. Every time I do a new case, I just look at it fresh like it's the first one. And going back to the statute and reading it again, it's funny, after 1,000 times of reading like the L1 regulations, every time I read it, I get a different perspective based on the facts I'm getting. So it's not something fixed. You always have to go back to the foundations and then build the case up from there. So are there any particular websites or books that you've used that helped you or continue to help you?
Well, I hate to give him the plug because he's making so much money off of us already, but Kurzban's, you got to have Kurzban's. Mm-hmm. I have what is it? Norton Tooby's Aggravated Felonies and Crimes Involving Moral Turpitude, always on my desk. I just use those as brief reference guides, and then we use Westlaw Next, and it's. When I started practicing, and I can't even believe because I'm way too young to feel this old. When I started practicing, I didn't even have a computer. I started, actually, this was when I started clerking before I went to law school. I clerked with my father before I went to law school, the summer before I started. And I didn't have a computer. I used a word processor back then. Yeah. So, and when I graduated from law school in '96, I don't think I was even on the internet at that point. And the entire practice of law has changed in just my short career.
Interesting. Now you have a great presence on national media, both television and print. How did you get comfortable with that? Because one issue I found is they edit what you say, which got problems, or they might, depending on who the person is, they might change things up or just misconstrue what you're saying. How difficult have you found being a national media person on these subjects? Have you started shying away from it, or are you more active, and how do you deal with that?
Well, dealing with print media is more difficult than dealing with live television. Live television, they can't edit you, thankfully. If it's going to be a pre-recorded spot, obviously there's always going to be some questions. But I mean, the reality of the situation is that generally the media outside of Fox News is immigrant friendly, so they're not looking to make you look bad. And I've done Fox and Fred's a couple times. When I was on, it was very early in the Trump presidency when he had changed a policy that was started under President Obama to prioritize the deportation of the unaccompanied minors, and I said something positive about President Trump, and that obviously got the attention of Fox News, because you don't ever hear any immigration lawyers talking nice about Donald Trump.
Yeah. And so what's going on with you as personally when it comes to the headache of, changes? I mean, it was under Obama, but have you seen in immigration court changes? Now, you're in New York primary practice, so I guess the court there is like Los Angeles, is a little more flexible than, let's say, in Atlanta or something like that. Is that the case? And have you seen them become more strict or more difficult?
Well, it's not necessarily the court that's the issue. It's Office of Chief Counsel. And realistically, people have revisionist history glasses on. I call them Democrat blue-colored glasses when they look back at the Obama presidency. The first 6 years of Obama's presidency, I mean, it was full speed ahead with regards to deportations. And it wasn't until the last 2 years, when he loses the Senate, that he elects to expand DACA and take that the second executive actions that he was implementing to enrage Republicans, because Republicans were very sincere in their intent to address immigration reform. Maybe it wouldn't have been in a comprehensive bill, but I worked on a bill that with the House with the House Republicans back in I want to say 2013, 2014. Now I'm blanking on when it was. But in any event, there was we were working on a guest worker bill that would have solved a lot of the problems we're seeing now, and 3 and 10-year bar amelioration was something that was very high on the list of to-dos. And so was it going to be the creation of a brand new path to citizenship? No, it wasn't. But, I mean, I've been doing deportation defense for a long time. I've never had a single one of my clients in all the years I've been practicing law ask me, when they're facing a deportation case, when they're standing in front of the judge, ask, when am I going to be able to vote? That's not their concern. Their concern is to be able to go home to their family, to their children, and come out of the shadows.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the Democrats have used pathway to citizenship as a wedge issue to prevent meaningful reform that would be a viable solution. And the Republicans obviously have moved very, very far to the right and are uninterested in providing anything that could be considered amnesty. And so we've got a logjam here that I don't see ever being solved, to be honest with you. I don't ever see there being immigration reform.
Yeah, that's why I believe either. It's just not possible. I mean, comprehensive immigration reform is so complicated with, like, the alphabet soup of immigration programs we have. They made it so complicated that to fix it, you kind of have to trash the whole system and throw it out. And it's kind of like medical care and health insurance. Like, this whole system has to be completely trashed and make a new one. But you can't really do that when everything's already moving. It's like a moving car. You can't take out the engine and redo it once it's already rolling. So it's gonna be hard. But if you imagine,
but it would be easy though. But it would be super easy. All you'd have to do is either eliminate 3 and 10-year bars from individuals that are already in the United States, or provide for them to be able to apply for a provisional waiver of those 3 and 10-year bars, and or provide a 245I. And there used to be a provision called 245I that allowed individuals to pay a penalty fee, and then they could just spend their $1,000, and that's sunsetted. But there's huge pushback from the Republicans on 245I. But if they were to potentially provide some sort of a pathway to pathway to legalization, they could just have a conditional residence status. That would be maybe 5 or 10 years. And then you'd have to petition to have the conditions removed, and within that period of time show that you've been law-abiding and that you've filed your tax returns and you haven't committed any type of a crime that would subject you to removal, to have those conditions removed, and then you could become a citizen 5 years later just like anybody else. It would be a 15-year road, and honestly, if someone's been lawfully living in this country for 15 years and then they want to spend the money to apply for naturalization, which is inexpensive these days, they should have the opportunity. They've proven themselves to be good contributing members of society.
I mean, if the argument, one argument I make for something like that, for the conservative Republican aspect, is it's a term you use for people coming out of the shadows. Having a two-tiered system, and I always talk about this a lot, but having a two-tier system where a big part of the population is hidden, and they'll pay into tax programs and stuff. They don't get any benefits, or they're afraid to go to police youth services, and they're always they get the short end of it when it comes to employment opportunities and employers abusing them. How does that doesn't really help anybody in the republic, and it really goes against at least the ideals of the republic we made, to have people open freely. We had slavery for all these years, so that kind of destroyed the ideals right there. But nonetheless, it reminds me kind of in ancient Greece, not Athens, but what was in Attica south of there, the Spartans or whoever they were, they had that second class of citizens who do the work, and then like once a year they would go and kill a bunch of them to keep their population down. It's kind of like that. Like we have all these farm workers do the work, and then every couple of years they do raids and they kick some of them out, and then it just restarts again. And that system is just like barbaric to have it like that. Now, in your perspective, philosophically, what would an immigration program? How would immigration look? Should immigration even be something that's regulated, or should it be like a free market thing where if someone finds a job here, comes, they don't get access to benefits, social benefits, but they come live here and work, and if they want to, they could leave. Do you have a more open system like that, or does it have to be some sort of regulations to keep the numbers down, for example?
Well, I like the idea of supply and demand being met. If in fact there's a labor shortage in specific job areas, then industry, and the United States worker isn't trying to fill it, we need to fill it.
Yeah.
I don't want to spend $10 on a single tomato.
Yeah.
And without migrant workers, you can forget about there's just certain jobs that require manual labor, and that doesn't mean that I want to be able to take advantage of an immigrant community by having them do the most difficult jobs that we have, physically difficult jobs. But the statistics bear out that those individuals who come to the United States and fulfill those jobs, their children who are born here, to a large percentage, end up graduating from school and end up getting employed in positions that are better than their parents were.
Yeah.
So, and that's the American dream. That's the way everyone came here, other than the individuals that founded the country. It was all of the immigrant ways people came and they worked in the jobs that Americans didn't want to do. They worked their fingers to the bone and to provide for a better life for their children. That's the American way. My wife is a refugee from the former Soviet Union. Her family came over back in the late 70s. They came to this country with their wedding bands and $500 in their pockets, not speaking a word of English, and they never took a single penny in food stamps or welfare or anything along those lines. They worked hard. Both of their children have done very well for themselves. They've graduated from schools and are American. And my children are the very first children in their family to be born in this country. So that's the way it's supposed to work.
Now, one argument that goes opposite that is, and you see this more back in the day, like decades ago, but there are jobs where young people, like teenagers, Americans, would do, like, throwing papers out in the morning, dishwashing. People would go washing dishes to pay through college, or even fast food, like the people at the fast food counter when you would go, or the drive-through. Now it's usually foreign labor that comes and does those kind of jobs. If those people weren't there to fill up those jobs, would these be jobs where high school students or college students would do to pay their way through school, or to make summer money to go on summer vacation? Or do you think that number is be just too small? It's like anecdotal.
I'm not sure. I know that's the way made my way through college. I did everything from washing dishes to bar backing, bussing tables, waiter. I worked in restaurants, and I also unloaded. I spent one summer out in California unloading mattresses for a big mattress company out there, and delivering mattresses. It was back-breaking work, literally. So, and most of my friends worked. We all worked in the restaurant industry.
Yeah.
I don't know whether or not the younger generation is unwilling to do that. Unfortunately, as I'm getting closer to 50, I'm a little bit more removed from kids that were millennials. I don't know what's in their minds. I don't think I want to know, to be honest.
Because it does teach them the value of hard work, money, all that kind of stuff by doing those kind of jobs. And I worked as a busboy too when I was in high school at a restaurant. So it does exist, but I'm not. Are these jobs? And I don't even know the answer. Are these jobs being not going to the native population because there's this other group that's coming, or just the native population doesn't want to do them, or maybe like barback or bartender jobs, they're a little more higher end in the sense that with the kind of skills and language ability you need to have. So those are the jobs maybe a college student could do, as opposed to they used to be washing the dishes. But anyways, with how expensive college is right now, dishwashing is not going to pay for anything.
No, it's not.
I have a dermatologist I went to. He's like, yeah, in 1980 at UCLA, my annual tuition was like $4,000. That's those days are gone. So you maybe could have paid your way through grad school with those wages, but not anymore. It doesn't make sense. But that's interesting stuff. Like, really, I'm trying to go to see what the philosophy of immigration is. Should people be moving or not? In my opinion, is the free movement of people should be always there. When the founders made the country, intentionally made it where people could travel between states and not have repercussions. They could work anywhere they want, and that was a big boom to our domestic economy. Whereas if you go to India right now, if you want to ship one piece of good from one side of the country to the other side, you got to pay taxes in every state you go through and do inspections in every state. And that's why India's economy is just lagging because of these state regulations internally. So that's something that's not prevented. Now, if we open that up to a national system, do we really want to have a kind of a global government situation? I'm not really that favor of that either. But,
I'm not in favor of a global government, and I want us to be able to determine who's coming to this country.
Yeah.
I don't think that just because. Just because I favor lawful immigration, I don't favor unlawful immigration. I favor people coming to the United States the right way, and I would like for the law to what I like to say is the most effective wall is an immigration system that is easy to navigate and simple to work.
Yeah,
that works perfectly. Just make it easy.
Yeah. Or have a system that makes sense, because right now, like a marriage case, immediate relative marriage case is going to take more than a year. So, like, if you're married, your spouse, you have to be separate for more than a year. It shouldn't take that long. Or to get I-130 approved for a immediate relative parent, it takes like 8 months right now. Like, how difficult is it to prove the relationship between a father and son for USCIS to take that long? If that system was faster, more straightforward. I mean, some aspects of immigration shouldn't even need immigration lawyers. Like, people. It's gotten so difficult that for an I-130, you need to have a lawyer just because of the insanity of.
Well, it's like a 27-page form now. I don't know how many pages it is now, but the I-130 is ridiculous.
Yeah, and then I-130A sometimes, and then adjustment of status. The I-485 used to be 5-6 pages. Now it's like 18 or 19. The DS-260 has just gotten incredibly difficult, and it's so easy for people to make an error, which may become misrepresentation later and create problems. So it's crazy how difficult they made it. As you said, I'm not. It's such a politically hot topic. It seems like the work we do is number one in the news and how politically sensitive it is. So we're really at the forefront of what's going on in the country right now. It's amazing how important our work has gotten. But moving on from that, you have been nominated for a board position for AILA. Can you talk about what that position entails and what your platform is?
Well, I guess I would be on the board of governors of AILA, which I honestly don't know exactly what all of the responsibilities would be. I know that I will be required to attend 4 board of governors meetings each year for the next 3 years if I win, which will be a monumental task, I believe, given my libertarian slant. The organization is very heavily slated towards Democratic partisans, in my opinion. Although there are conservatives or moderates in the organization, there aren't many of us. But regardless, I believe I'd be voting on any provisions of governance that come up during that 3-year term. And I never saw myself running for any type of a national office. It wasn't something I was interested in. But someone from Los Angeles, who I'll keep his name out of it, just to spare the innocent or the guilty, pushed me towards it. Basically, because he wanted to have more diversity with regards to political voices on the board, and that was the reason why he eventually wore me down. And he's a great guy, and he works out of Los Angeles. I've referred a couple cases to him. He's a great lawyer. He's already on the board right now.
Awesome. Good to have that different perspective there. Now, voting is going to happen. I don't know when. We'll probably get an email from IRLA members. But
it's probably. I know you can vote at the annual conference, but I think there's going to be a way to vote online. As soon as I figure that out, I'll post it.
And you're going to be at the annual conference. So if any listeners want to come and meet you in person.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'm going to be going out. This will be my first conference, I think, in 3 years or so. So I'll be there shaking hands if anyone wants to shake my hand or scream at me because they disagree with my politics.
Wonderful. Now, before we leave. One is I want to ask, do you have any parting words or kind of information to help people, just guide people, especially a lot of the law students who listen? And secondly, how to contact you and follow you, your Twitter account, email, and that kind of stuff.
Sure. I'm at M Kolken. That's MKOLKEN. That's Twitter. And then my website is kolkenlaw.com, KOLKENLAW.com. Or you can look me up on Facebook, Matthew Kolken.
Awesome. Thanks, Matthew. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Thanks for coming. I hope to see you in San Francisco this summer.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing you on Twitter, too.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.